Well, do you see Billy Bob as being like Robichaux, different? What way is he going to go?
Well, he's quite different in that, well, one, he's a defense attorney, but he was a Texas Ranger who accidentally killed his best friend on a night raid down into Coahuila, Mexico. And it was the vigilante in him that eventually brought about his best friend's death.
This is Navarro?
Yeah, that's right. His good friend L.Q. Navarro, who appears in the books as a specter. And I subscribed to a belief in the unseen. I believe those spirits are with us. I believe the visible worlds. The external manifestation of one that's far more complex than we could ever imagine in our wildest dreams. But I believe the world I believe the world is inhabited as much by the dead as it is by the living. My father was something of a historian, and he said that if we accept the notion of a creator, an eternal being whose intelligence does not know time, because calendars are created by men as a way of measuring our lives, but our calendars have no application in eternity. Well, if time does not exist for the Creator, then is it perhaps true that past, present, and future happen simultaneously, that time is not linear? And for that reason, sometimes we seem to witness events that are historical, but perhaps they're prehistoric people living out their lives only inches away from us. I think the latter is probably the case.
I was really interested in the dialogue between Billy Bob and Navarro, because it reminded me very much of In the Electric Mist of the Confederate Dead, only it's a different technique, which is actually my very favorite Robichaux.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm real fond of that book myself.
But you also had, in that one, the Confederate General Hood.
That's right.
Communicating, although if I remember right, the technique that you used to enable that was Dave was on some kind of induced acid trip, wasn't that it?
Yeah, he was at a party given by these Hollywood producers on the movie set where a film was, being made in New Iberia, and somebody put some LSD in one of his drinks to discredit him. And of course, it was very effective, but he began to have these peculiar psychedelic experiences, but we're never quite sure if Dave actually sees into the past or not. But you've read the book, and we see that in one of his apparent hallucinations, he poses with John Bell Hood and some members of the Confederate Signal Corps. And later on, Alifair is flipping through photographic history of the war between the states, and there's this group picture taken in Louisiana of John Bell Hood with members of the Confederate Signal Corps, and she says, "Dave, why are you in this picture?" And he just closes the book and says, "Sometimes it's better to put the past away."
It's very true.
I have to say I'm right proud of that scene.
It's brilliant. It comes right at the very end of the book. Yeah. I was reading it just the other day, and I thought how lovely to read your readers, with that suggestion. It's the perfect conclusion to the novel. And also in that book, aren't you really evoking Mallory and the Morte d'Arthur, which of course looks back to Celtic legends and King Arthur. I thought it was an interesting.
For the Grail.
Exactly. Well, not only the Grail, but you also have this kind of knight or force for good coming back in a time of great need, which Hood, I presume, is speaking today of, out of that impulse in the same way that Arthur is invoked. You like to explore classical themes, don't you? Oh,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Seems to me that Burning Angel, you've gone back in that one to Beowulf?
That's right. I went back to Beowulf. I'm not very good on plots.
Just steal them, do you?
I have to go back into the past. But yes, it makes use of the legend of Beowulf, who, of course, fought Grendel to protect the treasure. And in the story of Burning Angel, we meet a likable Hood, a guy named Sonny Boy Marsalis, who on the surface appears to be a criminal, but he possesses noble qualities. In fact, when he gets locked up in the Iberia Parish stockade, he starts radicalizing all these inmates in there, telling them about Joe Hill and Woody Guthrie. And it's like Father Berrigan, Daniel Berrigan, was put in the penitentiary by the government back in the 60s. Well, that was like putting Bear Rabbit in the briar patch. Because he radicalized all these guys when he got inside. Well, Mitch, the man who became the advocate for the homeless, he's passed away now, but I forget his name. But Mitch Snyder was one of the followers of Dan Berrigan. Mitch Snyder had been in prison for some financial crime. He was a stock investor, but he had an MBA. And here he was suddenly filled with this message that he got from Father Berrigan, and he made a lot of trouble for the administration when he got out of prison. So the lesson is, don't put articulate radicals in jail.
Did Timothy Leary go to jail? He did.
Pardon?
Didn't Timothy Leary go to jail?
I don't know.
I think he did.
It.
Well, he was the LSD fellow, but it seemed to me, I remember that he did actually more damage from the inside than the outside of the system. You also like biblical themes.
Oh yeah, it's in Burning Angel.
St. Paul?
That's right. St. Paul admonishes us, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, there may indeed be angels living amongst us, so it is very important as to how we treat one another. And we come to feel in Burning Angel that this Hood's, Sonny Boy Marsalis, may have supernatural properties.
That's a Greek theme too, though. I know there's at least one wonderful Greek myth about the old couple who welcome a stranger to the door. I'm trying to remember, I can't remember their name, but I know, anyway, he turns out to be Zeus in disguise.
Oh, is that right?
And when he leaves the next day, he said, for their charity, what boon would they like? And they're an old couple, and they've always been together, and they say to him that their greatest fear is that one of them will die first, and they will be separated. And so when their time comes, they would like to go together. And when their time comes, thanks to Zeus, they actually turn into trees. Wow. And they grow up beside the door of their home, and their branches interlace. Which I've always thought, was a very, very nice reward for that. But it's certainly what Paul was writing about. In your new book, Sunset Limited, you're looking at Golgotha and crucifixion, aren't you?
That's right. It's my attempt at the Passion play. The story is based on an actual event, an atrocious one, that took place in Louisiana some years ago, the crucifixion of a farm labor organizer. And in this story, the fictionalized account, Dave Robichaux discovered the body with his father in 1956. The labor organizer was nailed against a barn wall, and that's what indeed did happen. In the story, the daughter of the slain organizer, a man who belonged to the Wobblies, the IWW, the daughter comes back to New Iberia. She's a Pulitzer Prize photojournalist named Megan Flynn, and she's determined to wreak havoc upon New Iberia for the murder of her father. She blames the community at large. But it's a story about a violent legacy that has not been confronted. And you see, Dave subscribes to the notion that in order to extricate oneself from the past, we have to atone for it. In the biblical passage, I think in the book of Kings, it's in the story of King Ahab, I believe, is the sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the heads of the son. And I believe that was the Old Testament notion that people are not cursed by the sins of the fathers, but they have to set history straight. They have to somehow correct what has gone before to make the earth a new place. My favorite passage in all the Bible is either in the book of Proverbs or the book of Wisdom. And the voice of Yahweh says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the beginning and the end. I am he who makes all things new. And that's the point of the book. That's the point of redemption, restoration. It's always about restoration.